Claire Monroe sent the message through tears that blurred her phone screen. She only wanted to vent to her best friend after discovering her boyfriend's affair. But she had no idea she'd pressed the wrong number. The text went to Noah Carter, a stranger, a single dad who had just set his phone down after putting his son to bed. When he read those words, he didn't ask questions. He didn't hesitate. He typed back one sentence: "I'm on my way." Could a wrong number become the right answer? Claire Monroe sat on the edge of the bed she'd shared with someone for 3 years, staring at the phone in her hand like it was evidence in a trial. The apartment felt smaller now. The walls seemed closer. She was 29 years old, worked freelance as a graphic designer, and until 2 hours ago, she believed her life was stable. She believed she knew the man sleeping beside her every night. She believed in a lot of things that turned out to be convenient lies. The discovery had been accidental. She wasn't the type to snoop. She didn't go through his phone or check his messages. But when his laptop was open on the kitchen table and a notification popped up with a woman's name and a heart emoji, Claire's hands moved before her brain could stop them. She clicked. She scrolled. She read every word. The messages went back months. There were photos. There were plans. There was a whole other version of his life that didn't include her at all. When he came home from work that evening, she didn't yell. She didn't throw anything. She just asked him one question. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize either. He said it wasn't serious. He said she was overreacting. He said a lot of things that made her feel like she was the problem. So she grabbed her coat, her phone, and walked out before the tears could start. She didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. She ended up at a coffee shop 6 blocks away. It was the kind of place that stayed open late for students and insomniacs. The lights were dim. The air smelled like burnt espresso and old pastries. Claire sat in the corner booth farthest from the counter and ordered a coffee she didn't drink. She just needed somewhere to sit that wasn't home. Somewhere that didn't smell like him. Somewhere she could fall apart without an audience. She pulled out her phone and opened her messages. Her best friend's name was at the top of the list. They'd been close since college. She was the person Claire called when things went wrong. She was supposed to understand. Claire's fingers moved quickly across the screen, typing through the blur of tears. "He hurts me." She added her location without thinking. She just wanted someone to know where she was. She wanted someone to care. But her hands were shaking. Her vision was blurred. And when she hit send, she didn't notice that the last digit of the number was wrong. The message didn't go to her best friend. It went to a stranger. Across town, Noah Carter was washing dishes in a kitchen that hadn't been updated since the 1980s. The faucet dripped. The linoleum was cracked. The cabinets didn't close all the way. But it was home. He'd lived there for 6 years, ever since his ex-wife left, and he got full custody of their son. The place wasn't much, but it was theirs. He worked as an HVAC technician, fixing air conditioners and heaters for people who didn't know how to change a filter. The pay was decent. The hours were long. But he made it work because he had to. His son, Tommy, was 8 years old and obsessed with dinosaurs. He had a collection of plastic figures lined up on his bookshelf in order of size. He knew all their names. He could tell you which ones were herbivores and which ones were carnivores. Noah didn't understand half of it, but he listened every time Tommy explained. That's what you did when you were a single parent. You listened. You showed up. You didn't get a second chance if you missed the first one. Tommy had just fallen asleep after 3 stories and 2 glasses of water. Noah stood in the doorway of his room for a moment, watching the rise and fall of his son's chest under the blanket. The nightlight cast a faint glow across the walls. The dinosaurs stood guard on the shelf. Everything was quiet. Everything was safe. Noah pulled the door halfway closed and walked back to the kitchen. His phone was on the counter. He picked it up out of habit, scrolling through emails he didn't care about and news he'd already read. Then a message came through. The number wasn't saved. The text was short. He hurts me. There was a location pin attached. Noah stared at the screen. His jaw tightened. His chest felt heavy. He didn't know who sent it. He didn't know the situation. But he knew what those words meant. Or at least, he thought he did. Years ago, his younger sister had been in a relationship with someone who hurt her. She never said it outright. She made excuses. She wore long sleeves in summer. She smiled when people asked if she was okay. Noah didn't push. He thought she'd tell him when she was ready. He thought he had time. By the time she finally left, the damage was done. She was safe now, living 2 states away with a new life and a restraint order. But Noah never forgave himself for not acting sooner. He read the message again. He hurts me. He didn't know this person. He didn't know if it was a mistake or a cry for help. But he wasn't going to take that chance. Not again. He grabbed his keys from the hook by the door and knocked on his neighbor's apartment. Mrs. Callahan was 72 and liked to complain about the noise from upstairs, but she also babysat Tommy when Noah had emergencies. She answered the door in her bathrobe, holding a mug of tea. Noah spoke quickly. He told her he had to go out. He didn't explain why. She asked if everything was okay. He said he wasn't sure yet. She nodded and told him to go. She'd check on Tommy in 10 minutes. Noah thanked her and headed for his truck. He typed a reply as he walked. "Where are you? I'm on my way." He didn't wait for a response. He just started driving. The coffee shop wasn't far. 15 minutes in light traffic. The GPS led him to a corner building with a faded sign and fogged-up windows. Noah parked across the street and looked through the glass. There were only a few people inside. A guy with headphones, a woman with a laptop, and in the back corner, someone sitting alone with their head down. He couldn't see her face, but something about the posture told him that was her. He got out of the truck and walked across the street. The bell above the door chimed when he entered. The air inside was warm and heavy. The barista glanced up but didn't say anything. Noah scanned the room and headed toward the corner booth. Claire didn't hear him approach. She was staring at her phone, rereading the message she'd sent. It wasn't until she saw a pair of work boots stop in front of her table that she looked up. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a jacket with a company logo stitched on the chest. His face was serious, but not angry. His eyes were cautious, but not cold. Noah looked at her and saw no bruises, no visible injuries, no signs of immediate danger. But her eyes were red. Her cheeks were wet. Her hands were trembling around her phone. He realized then that he might have misunderstood, but he didn't leave. He just stood there, unsure of what to say. Claire blinked at him. Her voice came out quiet and confused. "Who are you?" Noah cleared his throat. He felt suddenly foolish. "You texted me. You said someone was hurting you. I came to help." Claire's face went pale. She looked down at her phone and saw the message thread. The number was wrong. She'd sent it to a stranger. A wave of embarrassment and panic washed over her. She shook her head quickly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. This was a mistake. I thought I was texting my friend. I'm so sorry." Noah didn't move. He glanced at the empty seat across from her, then back at her face. "Are you safe?" The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that, not tonight. Not ever, really. She nodded slowly. "I'm not in danger. Not like that. He didn't hit me. He cheated on me. I was upset. I didn't mean to bother you." Noah exhaled. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly, but he didn't turn to leave. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down without asking. "You're not bothering me." Claire stared at him. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know why he was still here. But for the first time that night, she didn't feel completely alone. And that scared her almost as much as it comforted her. Claire stared at the man sitting across from her. He didn't look like someone who made impulsive decisions. His hands rested flat on the table, calloused and worn from work. His jacket had grease stains near the cuffs. He looked tired, but not in a way that suggested weakness. More like someone who'd been carrying weight for a long time and had gotten used to it. She didn't understand why he was still here. She'd told him it was a mistake. She'd apologized, but he hadn't left. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and tried to pull herself together. Her voice came out rough. "You didn't have to come. I don't even know you." Noah leaned back in the chair. His expression didn't change. "You sent a message that said someone was hurting you. I wasn't going to ignore that." Claire felt a fresh wave of embarrassment. She looked down at her coffee cup. The liquid inside had gone cold. "I wasn't thinking. I just needed to talk to someone. I didn't mean to scare you." Noah shook his head. "You didn't scare me. I just wanted to make sure you were okay." She looked up at him. There was something in his tone that made her believe him. He wasn't doing this for credit. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He just showed up because he thought someone needed help. That realization made her throat tighten. She blinked hard and forced herself to speak. "I'm not okay, but I'm not in danger. Not the way you probably thought." Noah nodded slowly. He didn't press her. He just waited. That was the thing that surprised her most. He didn't ask questions. He didn't fill the silence with advice or reassurance. He just sat there and let her decide what to say next. Claire took a shaky breath. "His name is Ryan. We've been together for 3 years. I thought everything was fine. I thought we were building something. But tonight, I found out he's been seeing someone else. For months. And when I asked him about it, he acted like I was the problem. Like I was being dramatic." Her voice cracked on the last word. She hated how weak she sounded. She hated that she was saying this to a stranger. But once she started, she couldn't stop. "I know it's not the same as what you thought. I know people go through worse. But it still hurts." Noah didn't look away. He didn't minimize it. He just nodded. "It's supposed to hurt. That doesn't make you dramatic." Claire felt something break loose in her chest. She'd been holding it together all night, trying to convince herself she was overreacting. But hearing someone say it was okay to feel this way made the tears come harder. She covered her face with her hands and let herself cry. She didn't care that they were in public. She didn't care that this man was a stranger. She just needed to let it out. Noah didn't try to comfort her. He didn't reach across the table or tell her it would be okay. He just sat there and let her have the moment. When she finally looked up, her face was blotchy and her eyes were swollen. She felt raw and exposed, but she also felt lighter. She wiped her face again and let out a bitter laugh. "I don't even know your name." Noah offered a faint smile. "Noah Carter, Claire Monroe." She took a deep breath and steadied herself. "I'm sorry you came all the way out here for nothing." Noah shook his head. "It wasn't for nothing." Claire frowned. "What do you mean?" Noah looked at her for a long moment before answering. His voice was quieter now. "A few years ago, my sister was in a bad relationship. She didn't talk about it. She didn't ask for help. I saw the signs, but I didn't push. I thought she'd tell me when she was ready. By the time she finally left, the damage was already done. She's okay now. She's safe. But I still think about what would have happened if I'd done something sooner." He met Claire's eyes. "So when I saw your message, I didn't want to take the chance. I didn't want to assume it wasn't serious." Claire felt her chest tighten. She understood now why he came. It wasn't about her. It was about someone he couldn't help before. She didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded. They sat in silence for a while. The coffee shop was nearly empty now. The barista was wiping down tables. The guy with headphones had left. It was just the two of them and the hum of the espresso machine. Claire felt the weight of the night pressing down on her. She didn't want to go back to the apartment. She didn't want to see Ryan. She didn't even know if she could face him without falling apart again. Noah eventually spoke. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" Claire nodded. "I can stay with my friend. I just need to call her." "Good." Noah stood up and pulled his keys from his pocket. "You shouldn't go back there alone." Claire looked up at him. "You're leaving?" Noah hesitated. "Unless you need me to stay." She didn't know why, but she did. She didn't want to be alone yet. She gestured to the chair. "Can you stay for a little while? Just until I figure out what to do." Noah sat back down. "Yeah, I can do that." They talked for the next hour. It wasn't deep conversation, mostly small things. Claire told him about her work, how she'd been freelancing for 2 years, and liked the freedom, but hated the instability. Noah told her about his son, Tommy, and how he'd just learned to ride a bike without training wheels. He mentioned his job fixing air conditioners, and how people always waited until the hottest day of summer to realize their unit was broken. Claire found herself laughing at some of his stories. It felt strange to laugh after everything that had happened, but it also felt necessary. At one point, Claire asked him why he wasn't married. Noah didn't flinch at the question. He just shrugged. "I was. It didn't work out. She wanted a different life. I didn't blame her. Being a parent is hard. Being a single parent is harder. But Tommy's worth it." Claire admired that. The way he talked about his son. The way he didn't make excuses or blame his ex-wife. He just accepted the situation and moved forward. It made her think about Ryan, how he never took responsibility for anything, how he always had an excuse, how she'd spent 3 years making herself smaller so he could feel bigger. Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen and her stomach dropped. It was Ryan. She didn't want to answer, but she also knew he'd keep calling until she did. She looked at Noah. "It's him." Noah didn't tell her what to do. He just nodded. "You don't have to answer if you're not ready." Claire stared at the phone. The buzzing stopped. Then it started again. She felt the familiar pull of guilt and obligation. She'd spent 3 years answering his calls, 3 years prioritizing his needs, 3 years believing that if she just tried harder, things would get better. But they never did. She let the call go to voicemail. A minute later, a text came through. "We need to talk. I'm sorry. Please come home." Claire felt her resolve waver. She knew what would happen if she went back. He'd apologize. He'd say all the right things. He'd make her feel like she was being unreasonable. And she'd stay because leaving felt harder than staying. She hated herself for even considering it. But the truth was, she was scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of starting over. Scared of admitting she'd wasted 3 years on someone who didn't value her. Noah watched her face and seemed to understand what she was thinking. He leaned forward slightly. His voice was steady. "Whatever you choose, don't choose it, because you're afraid to be alone." Claire looked at him. Those words hit harder than anything Ryan had said all night. She realized that's exactly what she'd been doing. Staying out of fear. Settling out of convenience. She'd convinced herself that being with someone, even the wrong someone, was better than being by herself. But sitting here with a stranger who'd shown her more kindness in 2 hours than Ryan had in 3 years made her question everything. She set her phone face down on the table. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to leave." Noah's expression softened. "You texted for help tonight. That took strength." "I texted the wrong number, but you still asked." Noah's voice was calm but firm. "A lot of people don't. They keep it inside until it destroys them. You reached out. That matters." Claire felt tears prick her eyes again, but this time they weren't from sadness. They were from something she hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Someone saw her. Someone listened. Someone didn't tell her she was overreacting or being too sensitive. Noah didn't try to fix her. He just made space for her to exist exactly as she was. Her phone buzzed again. Another text, then another. Ryan was getting impatient. Claire felt the old instinct to respond, to smooth things over, to make him feel better. But she didn't move. She just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling the weight of 3 years pressing down on her. Noah stood up. I should get back. My neighbor's watching my son. He pulled a receipt from his pocket and wrote something on the back. He slid it across the table. That's my number. The right one this time. If you need anything, call me. Not because you owe me, just because sometimes it helps to talk to someone who isn't in the middle of it. Claire picked up the receipt. She looked at the number, then back at Noah. Why are you being so nice to me? Noah shrugged. Because someone should be. He turned and walked toward the door. The bell chimed as he left. Claire watched him go, then looked back down at the receipt in her hand. She folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. Then she picked up her phone and opened her messages. Ryan's texts were still coming through. Apologies mixed with guilt trips. Promises mixed with accusations. She read them all, and for the first time, she saw them for what they were. Manipulation. She didn't respond. She opened a new message thread and typed out a text to her best friend. The real one this time. Can I stay with you tonight? I'll explain everything. I just need to get out of here. The reply came within seconds. Of course. I'll leave the door unlocked. Come whenever you're ready. Claire stood up and left the coffee shop. The cold night air hit her face. She pulled her coat tighter and started walking. She didn't know what tomorrow would look like. She didn't know if she'd have the strength to end things with Ryan for good. But tonight, she'd taken the first step. She'd asked for help. She'd been heard. And maybe that was enough for now. Behind her, her phone buzzed one more time. She didn't look back. Claire spent the night on her best friend's couch. She didn't sleep much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's face. She heard his voice. She replayed every conversation from the past 3 years, searching for signs she'd missed. But the truth was, she hadn't missed them. She'd seen them. She just chose to ignore them because admitting the truth meant facing what came next. And what came next terrified her. Her friend Jessica didn't ask too many questions. She made tea and brought out extra blankets. She sat with Claire until 2 in the morning, listening to everything that had happened. When Claire told her about the wrong number and the stranger who showed up, Jessica's eyes went wide. She wanted to know everything, what he looked like, what he said, whether Claire felt safe. Claire answered honestly. She felt safer with Noah, a complete stranger, than she had with Ryan in months. Jessica eventually went to bed, but Claire stayed awake. She sat on the couch with her phone in her lap, staring at the stream of texts from Ryan. They'd started apologetic. Then they turned desperate. Then angry. By midnight, he was accusing her of being dramatic. By 1 in the morning, he was blaming her for not trusting him. By 2, he stopped texting altogether. Claire read every message twice. She wanted to remember how it felt. She wanted to remember why she left. The next morning, Jessica made coffee and set a mug in front of Claire. Her voice was gentle but firm. You're not going back, are you? Claire wrapped her hands around the mug. The warmth felt grounding. I don't know. Jessica sat down across from her. You deserve better than someone who makes you question your own feelings. Claire knew that. She'd known it for a while. But knowing something and doing something about it were 2 different things. She'd built a life around Ryan. She'd made compromises. She'd adjusted her plans. She'd told herself it was what relationships required. But sitting here in Jessica's kitchen, miles away from the apartment she'd shared with him, she realized how much of herself she'd lost in the process. She spent the day at Jessica's place, trying to work but mostly staring at her laptop screen. Her phone stayed silent. Ryan didn't call, didn't text. It was the first time in 3 years he'd given her space without asking for something in return. Claire didn't know if that made things easier or harder. Part of her wanted him to fight for her. Part of her wanted him to show up and prove he cared. But another part of her, the part that was starting to find its voice again, knew that if he really cared, he wouldn't have hurt her in the first place. That evening, she pulled out the receipt Noah had given her. She stared at the number for a long time. She didn't know why she wanted to text him. She didn't owe him an update. He wasn't part of her life. But something about the way he'd listened made her want to reach out. So she typed a message. "I didn't go back. I'm staying with a friend. Thank you for last night." She almost deleted it. It felt too personal, too vulnerable. But she hit send before she could talk herself out of it. She set her phone down and tried not to think about whether he'd respond. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed. Good. That took guts. Claire smiled despite herself. She typed back, "I don't feel very gutsy." Noah's response came quickly. "You don't have to feel it for it to be true." They texted on and off for the rest of the evening. Nothing deep, just small exchanges. Noah told her about Tommy's school project on volcanoes. Claire told him about a client who kept asking for revisions, but never knew what they actually wanted. It was easy. Comfortable. Claire realized she hadn't had a conversation like this in years. With Ryan, everything had weight. Every word was analyzed. Every silence meant something. But with Noah, there was no pressure. He wasn't trying to fix her. He wasn't waiting for her to be okay. He just existed in the moment with her. Over the next few days, Claire stayed with Jessica. She went back to the apartment once, when she knew Ryan would be at work. She packed a suitcase with clothes and essentials. She grabbed her laptop and chargers. She took the framed photo of her and her mom from the nightstand. She left everything else. The furniture they'd bought together, the kitchen supplies, the books on the shelf. She didn't want any of it. She just wanted out. Ryan texted her while she was packing. "We need to talk." Claire stopped and stared at the message. She could hear his voice in her head, the tone he used when he wanted something, the way he'd make her feel guilty for having boundaries. She'd spent 3 years responding to that tone. 3 years believing that if she just communicated better, things would improve. But they never did. Because the problem wasn't her communication. It was his unwillingness to listen. She typed back, "There's nothing to talk about. I'm done." Ryan's response came immediately. "You're being ridiculous. You can't just throw away 3 years over one mistake." Claire felt anger rise in her chest. One mistake. That's what he called it. Months of lying. Months of betrayal. Months of making her feel like she was imagining things. She wanted to type out everything she was thinking. She wanted to list every time he'd dismissed her feelings. Every time he'd turned the argument around on her. Every time he'd made her apologize for his mistakes. But she didn't. Because he wouldn't hear it. He'd twist it. He'd make himself the victim. So she just wrote, "Goodbye, Ryan." She blocked his number. She blocked him on social media. She deleted the photos from her phone. It felt brutal. It felt final. It felt necessary. When she got back to Jessica's apartment, she collapsed on the couch. Jessica sat beside her and handed her a glass of wine. Claire took a long sip and let out a shaky breath. "I did it. I actually did it." Jessica smiled. "I'm proud of you." Claire didn't feel proud. She felt hollow, like she'd just walked away from a fire and was still waiting to see if she'd been burned. But she also felt something else. Relief. The constant tension she'd been carrying was gone. She didn't have to check her phone every 5 minutes. She didn't have to worry about saying the wrong thing. She didn't have to make herself smaller to fit into someone else's idea of who she should be. That night, she texted Noah again. "I ended it. For real this time." Noah's response took a few minutes. When it came, it was simple. "How do you feel?" Claire thought about that. She didn't know how to answer. She felt sad. She felt angry. She felt free. She felt scared. She settled on the truth. "I don't know yet, but I think I'll be okay." Noah wrote back, "You will be." Over the next few weeks, Claire started rebuilding. She found a small studio apartment she could afford on her own. It wasn't much. One room with a kitchenette and a bathroom the size of a closet. But it was hers. She picked out furniture from thrift stores. She painted the walls a soft gray. She hung up the photo of her mom. She made it feel like home. She and Noah kept texting. Not every day, but often enough that it became part of her routine. He'd send her pictures of Tommy's drawings. She'd send him photos of design projects she was working on. They met for coffee once. It was casual. Easy. They talked about work and life and nothing in particular. Claire realized she was starting to look forward to his messages, not because she needed him, but because he reminded her that not everyone would hurt her, that some people showed up without expecting anything in return. One evening, she was sitting on the floor of her new apartment, assembling a bookshelf she'd bought secondhand. Her phone buzzed. It was Noah. "Tommy's birthday is next Saturday. Just a small thing at the park. You're welcome to come if you're free. No pressure." Claire stared at the message. It felt like a big step. Meeting his son. Being part of his life outside of late-night texts. She didn't know if she was ready for that. But she also didn't want to say no. She typed back, "I'd like that." The party was simple. A dozen kids running around. A table with juice boxes and cupcakes. Balloons tied to a tree. Tommy was a whirlwind of energy, showing everyone his new dinosaur toys. Noah introduced Claire as a friend. Tommy shook her hand seriously and told her his favorite dinosaur was the velociraptor because they hunted in packs. Claire told him that was a smart choice. Tommy grinned and ran off to play. Noah stood beside her, watching his son. "Thanks for coming," Claire smiled. "Thanks for inviting me." They stood there in comfortable silence. Claire realized she wasn't thinking about Ryan. She wasn't wondering what he was doing or whether he missed her. She was just here. Present. Alive. And that felt like enough. A few weeks later, Claire was working on a project when her phone buzzed. It was a text from Noah. She opened it and smiled. It wasn't anything important. Just a photo of Tommy holding up a science project he'd gotten an A on. Claire typed back a congratulations. Then she added, "I'm not hurt anymore. I just wanted you to know." Noah's response came a minute later. "I'm glad." Claire set her phone down and looked around her apartment. It was small. It was simple. But it was hers. She'd built this life on her own terms. She'd walked away from something that was slowly destroying her. And she'd found people who saw her for who she was, not who they wanted her to be. That was enough. That was everything. She picked up her coffee and went back to work. Outside, the sun was setting. The light came through the window in soft gold. Claire took a deep breath and let herself feel it. Not happiness exactly. Not yet. But something close. Something that felt like the beginning of it.